Welcome back to Success with Steven. My name is Steven Smith. On this channel, we discuss all things financial literacy. Last year, I released a video about the Navy Federal Flagship Visa, and I discussed a strategy to unlock up to $80,000 even if your credit is bad. And today we're diving into that exact same strategy with some updated information. This is a method that I've personally created myself and that I've used since the very beginning of my credit repair journey, and I'm still using it right now. The problem is a lot of people mention this approach, but they don't break it down step by step in a way that makes it easy for anyone to follow. But that's exactly what we're going to do today. I'll walk you through how to get up to $80,000 from Navy Federal, even if your credit is bad. And I'll also explain why, regardless of whether you have good credit, bad credit, excellent credit, the time frame to get there is almost the same. Seriously, the gap between where you are and that high limit funding is a lot smaller than you think. And if you're just getting started with your credit journey, don't worry. I've got a ton of videos about how to remove collections, how to deal with charge-offs and knock out hard inquiries, and all of these have been updated for 2026. I also have a lot of content about how to rebuild your credit profile from scratch. So don't forget to check out my credit repair playlist that will be down in the description below. So make sure you watch all the way through, take some notes, and if you're ready to level up your credit and funding power, then let's get right into it. And as always, let's begin with why we're focusing on Navy Federal today. Now, if you're not a member of Navy Federal, you might be wondering, why does everyone talk about this credit union? Navy Federal is the largest credit union in the US, and as of December 31st, 2025, Navy Federal Credit Union holds approximately $197.1 billion in assets and more than 15.2 million customers as of the recording of this video. And what sets them apart is their reputation for giving out massive credit limits, even to people with less than perfect credit. But I think the most important thing that makes them different is that they're not a traditional bank. Now, most banks operate based on profit or external shareholders and a stricter lending model. Navy Federal, on the other hand, is a member-owned institution. That means the money they lend out comes directly from the deposits and activity of their members. Because of this structure, they offer better interest rates, more generous lending, and stronger incentives for members who actively use their services. The more you bank with them, whether it's a checking account, a savings account, a loan, a certificate, anything like that, even their credit cards, the more that you get rewarded. They also use something called an internal score, which does track your activity and your relationship with this credit union. Things like direct deposits, timely payments, and maintaining accounts, they all raise that score. And the higher your internal score, the better your chances are at getting approved for higher limit products, even if your personal credit score isn't perfect. I have an entire video that shows you how to build your internal score with Navy Federal. I highly recommend you watch that video. I'm going to link it right here. With Navy Federal, it's not just about transactions, it's about building trust. Traditional banks treat you like a number, and Navy Federal treats you like a member of the family. That's why so many people swear by them when it comes to getting funding, especially if you're rebuilding your credit or you're just starting out. So how do you actually become a member of Navy Federal Credit Union? Now, a lot of people think that you have to be in the military to join, which is technically true, but there are far more ways to qualify than most people realize. I recently did a re-release of a video on the Navy Federal Pledge Loan. It is updated for 2026, and I touched on this, but let me break this down more clearly right now. Yes, military affiliation is required, but that doesn't mean you personally have to be active duty or a veteran. The military is one of the largest networks in the country, and odds are someone in your family or close circle has served in some capacity. You just might not have made that connection yet. Here are the most common paths to join. First, if you have an immediate family member who has served or is currently serving, then you're in. That includes grandparents, parents, siblings, spouses, children, stepchildren, even adopted children and grandchildren. You can qualify through them even if they're no longer active. Second, if you share a household with someone who's a member of Navy Federal or affiliated with the military, like a roommate who serves or a spouse who already has an account, you may also be eligible. In fact, that person can give you something called an access code to help you enroll. Third, if you're connected through your employment, that counts too. So if you work as a civilian for the Department of Defense, or if you're a contractor or part of the DoD support staff, you are eligible. Veterans of any branch are also welcome. Now, let's talk about a method some people call the backdoor method, although it's not really a secret, it's just underutilized. If you have a family member who served but has passed away, you can still join. So for example, let's say that your grandfather served in the Navy years ago. Even if he's no longer alive, you can still call Navy Federal, let them know the branch that he served in, and explain your relationship. You don't need any military ID or paperwork from family, just basic info like name, branch, and maybe the era that they served. They often are able to verify internally and approve you. However, keep in mind that approval criteria is subject to change. And someone left a comment about this when it comes to join Navy Federal, and I'll just pretty much sum this up the way that I told him. What I explained was, if you're in this country, especially if you're African American, most likely just due to the Civil War, drafts, more than likely someone in your family has served. Again, you just may not have made that connection. There are so many times in history where, especially as a minority, you probably had someone who was in the military. So again, those are all the various ways that you can join. I would just pick one and become a member. And the best part about this is, once you become a member, you can open the doors for others. You'll then be able to refer your own family members or your household to join as well. So the access just keeps expanding. The point is, don't let the idea of military only stop you. There are more pathways to membership than most people realize, and I do think that it's worth exploring, especially if you're serious about unlocking the kind of high limit funding that Navy Federal is known for. And once again, if you're not sure where to start, just ask your family. Odds are someone close to you has served, and that one connection could be your golden ticket into one of the most generous credit unions in the country. Now, if you would like to call to join today, the number is 1-888-842-6328. Before we cover the strategy, I just want to recap everything with Navy Federal when it comes to relationship building. Because of this structure, members enjoy significantly better interest rates, higher credit card limits, and easier access to loans. That's exactly why so many people prefer Navy Federal, especially when rebuilding credit or trying to access large amounts of funding. Now, one of my favorite things about Navy Federal is their potential to offer up to $80,000 on a single credit card. And yes, you heard that right. $80,000 on one card, and that's important because when you're in the process of rebuilding your credit, you don't need to open 5 or 6 cards. You can focus on one solid product that grows with you over time. Personally, when I began my rebuilding journey, this is exactly where I started. I knew I wasn't going to get a massive limit right away, but I also knew that Navy Federal had the potential to scale as my relationship and my internal score improved. So even if your credit isn't great today, this is still a powerful option. Now, if I had to choose one card to carry with me from poor credit to elite limits, it would be a Navy Federal credit card, hands down. Not to mention, if you also open an account with them on the business side, you can get an additional $25,000 with their Go Biz Rewards card. I have an entire video on that. If you haven't seen it, I'm going to link that video right here. So now that you know why Navy Federal is so powerful and why one credit card can be all that you need, let's actually get into the strategy for unlocking those higher limits step by step. Now, everything I'm going to share with you is based on real world experience and insights that I've gathered over time. My goal is to break this down in the simplest way possible. That way you can understand it clearly and take action confidently. Now, number one, you need to open a checking account and savings account with Navy Federal. Now, I recommend opening up a Flagship checking account and a money market savings account, and you want to keep that account open for 90 days before applying for anything else. Now, most people always ask me, why do I recommend those two accounts? Well, Navy Federal is relationship based. That's exactly why I just covered that. The more trust you build through consistent banking activity, the stronger your internal score will become, and the score plays a huge role in whether or not you get approved for higher limits. Internal scores are based on banking habits, how much money you deposit, how long you keep it there, what products that you use, and how often you interact with your account. So again, once you open those two accounts, you want to leave them open for at least 90 days before applying for any credit cards, especially if your credit isn't perfect. This 90-day window is your relationship building phase. You're letting Navy Federal see that you're serious about being a long-term member. Now, if your credit is already in good shape, you can apply right away. But even with good credit, I've seen that waiting 90 days while building that relationship can significantly increase your approval odds and the likelihood of being approved with a higher starting limit. For example, someone with good credit might only get approved for a $5,000 credit card if they apply immediately. But if they wait, they build a relationship, and they show some financial activity with Navy Federal, that limit could jump to $10,000 or more on their first credit card approval. Now back to the checking and savings account. The reason why I recommend the Flagship checking account in particular is because it's Navy Federal's premium checking account option. It also offers tiered dividends, which is essentially interest based on your balance. While the percentages aren't the highest in the market, getting something back is better than nothing at all. At the time of recording this video, you'll earn 0.35% APY. This will be for balances under $10,000. You'll earn 0.40% for balances between $10,000 and $24,999 and 0.45% for balances over $25,000. To qualify for dividends, you need to keep a daily balance of at least $1,500 in the account. Not only will this earn you passive interest, but it'll also show Navy Federal that you're financially stable. Doing this will boost your internal score in the process. And remember, at relationship-based institutions like this, your internal score can be more important than your credit score when it comes to funding decisions. Next, we've got the money market savings account. Now, this is another account that contributes to your internal profile. It pays 0.95% APY on balances over $2,500, and you earn higher amounts depending on your balance. The highest is 1.50% for $50,000 or more. So to take advantage of the higher rates, it requires an average daily balance of $2,500. So if you do decide to open both the Flagship checking and the money market savings account, you want to keep at least $1,500 in the checking and $2,500 in the savings if you can. Now, this is not a requirement. I'm not saying stretch yourself thin. If you can do that and you can leave money in there for 90 days, then I highly recommend it. You also want to set up direct deposit. Once again, if you can, this is one of the strongest trust signals that you can ever have at a bank or a credit union. Even if it's just part of your paycheck, having reoccurring income flow into the account will show consistent use and commitment. Now again, you want to do this consistently for 90 days. Let your balances sit, use your debit card here and there, maybe transfer some money in and out to show some activity. If you already have products with Navy Federal like the pledge loan, then that's perfectly fine. You don't need to start over. Definitely use those products. That is a great idea. And this strategy works whether you're starting fresh or you already have some products with Navy Federal at this time. Now, after that 90-day mark, that's when you can apply for the credit cards. By then, your internal score has had some time to build. You've demonstrated responsible banking behavior. You've maintained solid account balances, and hopefully you set up direct deposit. All of that combined gives you a much better shot at not just approval, but getting a much higher starting limit. And again, we're talking about a card that can scale all the way up to $80,000 over time. That's the long-term goal. You're not just applying for a card, you're positioning yourself for real scalable funding that grows with your financial health. If you also want to explore some additional products like the pledge loan or an auto loan or even their checking line of credit or certificates, then I highly recommend that you do that. But ideally, you should still follow this 90-day rule first. I'll also have videos on the checking line of credit. I have videos on certificates. I also have a video on how I was approved for an auto loan. So if you're interested in any of those products, then they might be clickable here, but YouTube only lets me put 5 videos with clickable links. So if you don't see them, just go to my YouTube channel. There will be a magnifying glass. Type the name of the video like Navy Federal Auto or certificates or anything like that. The video will come up. All of this is for you to lay the foundation, build the relationship, and then branch out into other offerings once your internal profile is strong. Because remember, Navy Federal isn't just handing out high limits randomly. They reward consistent behavior, smart banking, and loyalty. You give them 90 days of stability and they might give you a credit card that can change your financial future. Now, before we talk about the next step in this strategy, you need to know exactly where your credit score currently sits. That's why I suggest using rising.com. This platform gives you access to a tri-merge credit report and scores. It'll also help you identify negative items that may be hurting your credit score. It can also assist you with disputing inaccurate accounts through its dispute hub. Not to mention, you can also add positive payment history through rent reporting and utility reporting, including back reporting up to 24 months, which may boost your overall credit profile. You can start a trial today for $1 at rising.com. The link will be in the description. Now, once you know where your credit score actually stands, and if you've taken some of those options to actually boost your credit score, you can move on to step number 2, and that's going to be applying for a Navy Federal credit card. Now, if you followed the plan, you waited 90 days during which you opened the Flagship checking and the money market savings accounts, you made consistent deposits, and ideally, you set up direct deposit. By now, your internal score with Navy Federal should be in great shape. That internal score is a big deal. It's what Navy Federal will use to evaluate your relationship with them, and it directly affects your credit card approvals and your starting limits. Before submitting any credit card application, you want to go to Navy Federal's pre-qualification page. This will be a soft pull, meaning it doesn't affect your credit score. You'll enter a few personal details and Navy Federal will let you know which cards that you're likely to be approved for. Now, if you only pre-qualify for the cash rewards secured card, don't panic. That's exactly how I started. It means you just need a bit more rebuilding before you're able to do anything else. In this situation, you'll need to make a refundable deposit of at least $200, which will serve as your collateral. This card will report to the major credit bureaus and it will help you build or rebuild your credit over time. Now, if your credit is in better shape, you might see options like the Cash Rewards unsecured version, the More Rewards Amex, or the Go Rewards card. These are solid unsecured options and all of them have a max limit of up to $50,000. Now, if your credit is excellent or if your relationship with Navy Federal is strong thanks to those 90 days of groundwork, you may be pre-qualified for the Flagship Rewards Visa card. This is the card that we've been aiming for, and that's because it's the only Navy Federal credit card that can go all the way up to $80,000 in credit limit. And that is huge. The other cards again cap out at $50,000. So even if you spread your total credit across multiple cards, say $20K on the Cash Rewards, $15K on the Go Rewards, and $35K on the Flagship, it takes more effort to manage and doesn't always offer the same growth potential. Now, I will say that there are strategies that you can use where if you apply for multiple credit cards with Navy Federal, you can actually get credit limit increases faster than it would take you to get $80,000 on a single card. But if you're rebuilding credit and you actually just want to maximize the one card, the Flagship, then you want to follow this strategy. Personally, I recommend going straight for the Flagship if it's available to you. It comes with a minimum starting limit of $5,000, which is already a strong foundation. But remember, whatever you qualify for, whether it's a secured card, a Cash Rewards card, or the Flagship, the key is to get started. Every Navy Federal credit card reports to the major credit bureaus and it will feed into your internal score. So even if you're starting small, you're still building towards that $80,000 goal. Now, in the next section, I'll show you exactly how to grow your limit over time, especially if you start with a secured card. Now, let's get into the most important part of your journey. This is how you go from a secure credit card with Navy Federal all the way up to an $80,000 credit limit using our strategy, patience, and timing. If you start with the Cash Rewards secured card, here's what you need to know. After about 6 months of responsible usage, Navy Federal will begin evaluating whether you're ready to graduate to an unsecured credit card. Graduation means they'll refund your initial deposit, whether it was $200 or even more than that, and they'll replace your secured card with an unsecured Cash Rewards credit card. On top of that, they'll often start you off with a new credit limit around $2,000. Now, in my personal experience, I did not graduate right at the 6-month mark. I still had charge-offs on my credit report and my credit score wasn't strong enough. So while Navy Federal did reach out after 6 months with graduation emails, I wasn't approved right away. It did take me exactly 1 year before I graduated. I still had 2 charge-offs at that point, but they saw my consistent payment history on the secured card and that was good enough. So take note, even with imperfect credit, graduation is still possible. You just need to be consistent and pay on time and give it some time. I have an entire video that I recently updated about the secured card and how to graduate. I highly recommend watching that video. I'll link it here, but if it's not there, again, search my video catalog and you will find it. Once you graduate and get that $2,000 unsecured cash rewards card, you can move to the next phase, which will be credit limit increases. Now, the previous step that we just talked about was for the individuals who have bad credit or they're rebuilding and they started with a secured card. This will now bring us to the 91 in 3 rule. For anyone who was approved for an unsecured card with Navy Federal, that includes those who started with fair or good credit. The strategy for you will begin with the 91 in 3 rule. And this means that you should wait 91 days or 3 full billing cycles after getting approved for your credit card before requesting your first credit limit increase. Now, let me explain exactly why you have to actually wait. Navy Federal needs enough time to evaluate your usage, your payment history, and your reliability. They're looking for responsible activity using the card regularly by keeping balances low, paying it down, and they're looking at your statements each month. At the 91-day mark, you'll want to request the maximum limit increase that you're allowed, which is currently $8,000. Now, in the past, Navy Federal did allow you to actually put $8,000 for the credit limit increase. However, they don't allow you to do that now. I do have a new video that I made about credit limit increases where I actually discuss what you should do now in order to send signals to Navy Federal that you should get the $8,000. I highly recommend that you watch that video. But let me give you an example. If you start with the $5,000 limit and you get approved for the full max of $8,000, you will now have a $13,000 credit card in just 3 months. But here's the thing, the 91 in 3 rule only works when you have a brand new credit card with Navy Federal, then you wait 91 days, then you're able to request that credit limit increase. Every credit limit increase after that, you will have to wait 6 months. And just for clarification, for those of you that had the secured credit card, graduation, when you go from, let's say, 200 to 2,000, that actually counts as a credit limit increase. So even after graduation, you will still have to wait 6 months as well, but we'll talk about that a little bit more. Now, before you submit that credit limit increase, you want to make sure that you optimize everything to increase your chances of getting the max amount. You want to pay down your credit card balances to below 10% utilization, but you don't want to bring them to 0. Lenders like to see active use, not inactivity. Make sure your credit reports are free of recent missed payments or any new derogatory marks. And keep making your deposits to your Navy Federal account. This will continue to boost your internal score. Your goal is to show Navy Federal that you're managing your current limits responsibly before you ask for anything else. All right, now let's continue talking about this timeline. Once you get your first credit limit increase at 91 days, Navy Federal requires that you wait 6 months or 180 days before requesting another credit limit increase. Now, this applies to everyone, whether you start with a secured card, a cash rewards card, or the Flagship Visa. It does not matter. If you have, once again, bad credit, secured credit card, graduation, 6 months, credit limit increase. If you have fair to good credit and you start with an unsecured credit card, 91 in 3 rule, you wait 91 days, credit limit increase, 6 months after that. If you have excellent credit and let's say you started with a Flagship credit card, same thing for you. You open the account, 91 days, your first credit limit increase. After that, you have to wait 6 months for every credit limit increase going forward. So here's what the first 9 months could look like in the most, let's say, ideal situation. At month 0, you are approved for a $5,000 credit card, and let's say it's the Flagship. On month number 3, you can request and hopefully receive an $8,000 increase. Now you're at $13,000. At month number 9, 6 months later, you request another $8,000. Now you have a $21,000 credit limit. If you started with a lower limit, let's say the $2,000 that you get after graduating your secured card, you can still follow a similar pattern. You'll just start a little further behind and it will take a little longer for you to catch up, but you will get there as well. Now, here's the key part of this strategy. If your goal is to reach $80,000 on a single card, the only card that you can actually do this on is the Navy Federal Flagship Visa Rewards card. All of the other cards like the Go Rewards, the More Rewards, the Cash Rewards, and the Platinum, they all cap out at $50,000. So you might be thinking, what do I do if I'm holding the Cash Rewards or the secured card and I want to go all the way up to $80,000? You'll do what's called a product change. You become eligible to change your card to the Flagship Visa after holding your current card for 1 year. However, there is one condition. Your limit does need to be at least $5,000, which is the minimum for the flagship. Ideally, though, you want to hit $10,000 or more before doing this. So here's another example. Let's say you start with a $2,000 secured credit card and it graduates to a $2,000 card, and you do that within 6 months. 6 months later, because graduation does count as a credit limit increase, you can then get $8,000 max. If you do that, you now have a $10,000 credit card that you've now had for 1 year. This now qualifies you to be able to product change that Cash Rewards unsecured card now to a unsecured Flagship Rewards Visa credit card. And this for you would be the turning point. From here, your goal is simple. Every 6 months, you can request the max credit limit increase of $8,000 until you hit the $80,000 max exposure. Now, I'm sure most of you are thinking, how long will this actually take? Well, let's break down the timelines depending on where you might start. Let's say you start with the bad credit or the secured card path. You graduate in 6 months, which brings you to a $2,000 unsecured credit card. And then 6 months after that, you're able to go from a $2,000 unsecured cash rewards card to a $10,000 unsecured cash rewards card. Once again, all of this would take you 1 year. Once you've done that, you're able to product change to the Flagship Visa, and now you're going to request an $8,000 credit limit increase every 6 months. The total time it'll take for you to reach the $80,000 mark would be around 5.5 years. Let's say that you have fair credit and you start with the $5,000 initial limit with Navy Federal. In 91 days, you then ask for a credit limit increase, which brings your total credit limit to $13,000. At this point, you can then ask every 6 months for an $8,000 credit limit increase. If you continue this every 6 months, the total time it would take you to reach $80,000 would be around 4.5 years. Let's say you have excellent credit and you start with a $25,000 limit from Navy Federal. In 3 months, you can actually increase your limit to $33,000 max. From then, you continue asking for those $8,000 limit increases every 6 months. It'll take you around 3.5 years to reach $80,000 total. The point of this is, no matter where you start, whether it's a secured card and bad credit, or let's say you have excellent credit and you have a high initial starting limit, everyone ends up in roughly the same timeline within a couple years of each other. And that's the beauty of Navy Federal's system. If you stick to the strategy, you will grow. And this strategy matters because this approach does more than just give you a high limit credit card. It also has a ripple effect across your entire credit profile. Credit scoring models like FICO take your highest limits into account when evaluating your profile. If you're approved for, let's say, a $25,000 or $50,000 credit card, it makes it easier for you to get approved for higher limits with other banks like Chase, American Express, or Citibank. Even better, if you plan on building business credit, personal high limit credit cards can help you get better approvals with lenders who check your personal credit profile. Most of the time, lenders often mirror your highest personal limit when deciding how much to give you on the business side. Now, every time I release this same video, there's often someone in the comments, I bet they're there right now. They say things like, why would anyone need $80,000 in credit? I don't know why, but for some reason, those people automatically assume that if you had $80,000 in a credit limit, you would for some reason spend more money. Now, when I'm making these videos, I expect that the people who are doing this are using it strategically and they're trying to improve their financial lives. It'll reduce utilization. It also shows that you can be a responsible borrower with other high limit amounts. So to address those people, if you have a problem with having an $80,000 credit card and you don't feel like you're responsible with it, then I don't recommend this for you in particular. Anybody else who's trying to use this as a strategy to get better limits, to get lower interest rates, that's their prerogative, and I think it makes sense depending on your situation. But let's recap everything. You want to start with a secured card if it's necessary. Then you want to let that card graduate. After that, you can request credit limit increases every 6 months. If you do start with an unsecured card, then at 91 days, you can request your first credit limit increase. If you start with an unsecured credit card, then at 91 days, you can request your first credit limit increase and then continue requesting an increase every 6 months. At the 1 year mark, you can do a product change to the Flagship if necessary. Then you repeat limit increases until you reach $80,000. The most important piece of this puzzle is consistency. If you stay on top of your payments, you keep utilization low, and and you make the right moves at the right time, this process just becomes automatic. So again, whether you're starting from the bottom or you already have a decent credit score, Navy Federal's structure gives you a clear path to high limit credit cards. And once you're holding that $80,000 line, the doors it opens personally and professionally are massive. I want to thank you guys so much for watching this video. The bigger picture here is that getting an $80,000 limit with Navy Federal is not just about asking for more credit. It's about positioning yourself the right way before you ever submit any request. A lot of people focus only on the application, but the real game is what your credit profile looks like leading up to it. Navy Federal can be very generous, but you still need to show them that you are a low-risk borrower who can manage credit responsibly. So again, check out rising.com. They do have some tools that can definitely help you, especially when it comes to cleaning up negative items, improving your overall score, and making sure that your report reflects as much positive payment history as possible. The stronger your profile looks, the easier it becomes to qualify for larger limits and better approvals. And again, if you have used this strategy in the last few years, let me know where you're currently sitting as far as credit limit increases with Navy Federal. I love to hear about your progress, and I love to also show some testimonials that others can see to know that this process actually does work. Once again, thank you so much for watching this video, and you guys have a wonderful day.